He laughed at the fragile human, until she lifted his 400-pound body in 3 by gravity like it was nothing. Vekrin descended the ramp of his cargo hauler with all 4 arms spread wide, breathing in the recycled atmosphere of Meridian Cross Station like it was the finest oxygen blend in the galaxy. Which, to be fair, it probably was not. The station smelled like a combination of industrial lubricant, overcooked protein paste, and the particular musk that came from having 200 different species crammed into one spinning metal can. Beautiful. He loved this place. The docking bay stretched out before him, a massive cathedral of commerce and chaos. Ships of every configuration sat in their berths, some sleek and new, others held together by what appeared to be prayer and thermal tape. Cargo loaders, both mechanical and biological, scurried between vessels like insects on a carcass. The sound was a symphony of hissing hydraulics, shouted curses in 40 languages, and the occasional small explosion that everyone seemed to ignore. Perfect. Vekrin's species, the Thoraxians, were built for this kind of environment. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms ending in 3-fingered hands that could crush steel or perform delicate circuit work, depending on what the job required. His exoskeleton was a deep purple-black, polished to a shine that caught the harsh docking lights. 2 large compound eyes gave him nearly 360-degree vision, which meant he saw the human before she even registered as important. She was small, laughably small, maybe 5.5 feet tall, with a frame that looked like it might snap if you breathed on it too hard. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back in some kind of functional knot, wearing a gray jumpsuit that had seen better days. She was directing a cargo loader with hand signals, her movements crisp and efficient. Vekrin snorted, the sound whistling through his breathing ports. A human, on a major trade station. That was rich. The human turned at the sound, her eyes meeting his with an expression that could only be described as unimpressed. She raised one hand, made a gesture that he assumed was some kind of greeting, and then went back to her work. He could not help himself. He laughed, the sound echoing across the docking bay like rocks in a tumbler. Several nearby workers looked up, and a few, the ones who knew him, started grinning. They knew what was coming. "Hey, fragile thing," Vekrin called out, all 4 arms gesturing in what he thought was a friendly manner. "Should you not be in a protective suit or something? I hear your species evolved on a low-gravity world. Would not want you to hurt yourself in standard station rotation." The human stopped. Slowly, deliberately, she turned to face him fully. Her expression had not changed one bit, still flat and neutral, but something about the way she shifted her weight made Vekrin's confidence flicker for just a moment. Just a moment. "Station gravity is 0.9 standard," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite her size. "I will manage." 0.9, Vekrin repeated, walking closer. His footsteps rang on the metal decking, heavy and solid. Right. That is what twice your Earth gravity must be exhausting." He stage whispered to a nearby Quillian dock worker, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I heard Earth only has 0.45 standard. Their whole planet is basically a floating balloon. No wonder they are built like twigs." The Quillian, a lizard-like creature named Skess, chittered in amusement. "Careful, Vekrin. Humans have a reputation." "For what? Breaking easily?" Vekrin grinned, mandibles spreading wide. "I have hauled cargo on 17 different worlds, Skess. I have worked in gravity wells that would crush most species. These soft skins from their gentle little world think they can compete in the real galaxy. Please." The human, Jade, according to the name patch on her jumpsuit, tilted her head slightly. "You seem very confident about Earth's gravity." "I am confident about facts." "Small one," Vekrin said, tapping the side of his head with one hand. "Earth gravity, 0.45 standard. Common knowledge. Your species compensates with technology and diplomacy because you sure cannot compete physically." A small crowd had started to gather now. This was free entertainment, and on a trade station where most people worked 16-hour shifts, free entertainment was worth its weight in platinum. Vekrin noticed at least 3 different species had their communication devices out, probably streaming this. Good. He liked an audience. Jade nodded slowly, as if considering something very carefully. Then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that predators probably used right before they pounced, but Vekrin was too pleased with himself to notice the warning sign. "Tell you what," she said, her voice almost cheerful now. "Since you are so confident about your superior strength and my weak low-gravity biology, how about we make this interesting?" Oh, this was getting better. Vekrin's day had just improved dramatically. Interesting how. A friendly competition. You and me. Physical challenges. Station Gymnasium has variable gravity settings. We can test your theories about Earth humans being fragile. She paused, that dangerous smile getting wider. Unless you are worried. The crowd made a collective sound. Something between a gasp and a laugh. Someone, probably Throppel the bartender who was never far from potential betting action, shouted, "Oh, this is happening. I am taking wagers, people. Odds currently 15-1 in favor of the Thoraxian." Vekran felt a surge of pride. 15-1. Not even close. You want to challenge me to a physical competition? You realize I have 4 arms, right? And an exoskeleton? And evolved on a world with actual gravity? I noticed the arms, Jade said, deadpan. Hard to miss. So is that a yes, or are you going to keep talking about how strong you are instead of proving it? Hook, line, and sinker. Vekran spread all 4 arms wide in a theatrical gesture of acceptance. Oh, tiny Earth thing, you just made my entire rotation. Absolutely yes. Let us go to the gymnasium right now and I will demonstrate exactly why Thoraxians are rated in the top 15% for physical labor in the guild. He leaned down, bringing his face closer to hers, voice dropping to what he thought was a menacing whisper. And when I am done, maybe you will show proper respect to species that evolved in the real conditions of the galaxy. Jade's smile never wavered. Sure thing, big guy. I look forward to helping you understand Earth gravity better. She turned to the growing crowd. Gymnasium. 20 minutes. Tell your friends. This should be educational. As she walked away, her movements easy and relaxed, despite the station's gravity, Vekran turned to his audience with all 4 arms raised in victory. The crowd was already buzzing, people shouting bets, streaming the news to friends on other decks. This was going to be legendary. Skess sidled up next to him, scales rustling with what might have been concern. Vekran, my friend, are you sure about this? Humans have been in the galactic community for 30 cycles now. If they were really that weak, would they still be here? Vekran waved one hand dismissively. They survived through technology and treaties, Kess. Same as always. Do not worry. This will be quick, clean, and highly entertaining. Now come on, I need to stretch before I embarrass that poor creature. He headed toward the gymnasium, confidence radiating from every movement, completely unaware that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The station cantina, affectionately known as the Rusty Valve, was packed to its structural limits within 15 minutes of the challenge being issued. Word traveled fast on Meridian Cross, especially when it involved potential humiliation and gambling opportunities. Vekran sat at the center of a large table, surrounded by a diverse collection of species, all eager to hear him hold court before the main event. Throppel, the cantina's owner and primary bartender, was a cephalodan with 12 tentacles and a gift for mixing drinks that could get any species pleasantly intoxicated without causing death. He slid a tall glass of something glowing and vaguely purple across the bar toward Vekran with 3 tentacles while simultaneously taking bets with the other 9. Okay, listen to this, Vekran said, raising his voice above the din. He held up 2 of his 4 hands, gesturing dramatically. So I am doing some research before the competition, right? Just to be thorough, and I look up Earth's actual gravity specification in the guild database. And, prompted Keswick, a mantis-like skitteran who was perched on a chair that clearly was not designed for his body type. His triangular head tilted with interest, multifaceted eyes glinting. 0.45 standard, Vekran announced, slapping the table with one hand hard enough to make several drinks jump. Literally less than half of galactic standard. Their entire planet has the gravity of a small moon. No wonder they are built like stick insects. No offense, Keswick. Some taken, Keswick clicked, but he was grinning or doing whatever skitterans did that passed for grinning. A Bolvarian engineer named Grinth, who looked like someone had combined a bear with a boulder and given it bad posture, leaned forward. But Vekran, I have worked with humans before. They do not seem that weak. I saw one carry a plasma conduit assembly that massed at least 80 kilos. In low gravity, sure, Vekran countered, taking a long drink. Put them in real gravity and they fold like cheap cargo netting. Trust me, this girl, Jade, she is going to get about 3 minutes into the competition before she is begging for a medical team. The crowd laughed, though Vekran noticed a few species exchanging glances that might have been skeptical. He did not care. He was on a roll. Here is what I do not understand, he continued, warming to his theme. Humans act like they are tough. They strut around the galaxy, taking jobs on stations, hauling freight, doing security work. But they come from a world where a strong breeze is probably a natural disaster, where jumping probably feels like flying. I mean, seriously, how did they even develop muscles in that kind of environment? Maybe they are genetically modified, suggested a small pixeling trader, her wings fluttering nervously. Maybe they are just clever enough to fake it, Vekran said, grinning wide. Talk a big game, rely on exosuits and grab assists and hope nobody calls them on it. Well, guess what? I am calling it. Today, everyone gets to see what happens when a human tries to compete with a real species in real conditions. Real conditions being 0.9 standard, came a voice from behind him, cold and clear as vacuum. The table went silent. Vekran turned, and there was Jade, standing about 10 feet away with her arms crossed. She had changed into athletic wear, simple gray shorts and a fitted top that showed arms that were, Vekran had to admit, more defined than he expected. Still tiny though, still fragile. Oh, the guest of honor arrives, Vekran said, spreading all four arms in mock welcome. We were just discussing Earth's impressive gravity. Tell me, do you people ever get dizzy from all the floating around? Jade walked closer, and the crowd parted for her like she was radioactive. That smile was back, the one that did not reach her eyes. Actually, I wanted to clarify something before we start. You said Earth's gravity is 0.45 standard, right? That is what the database says. Yes, Vekran confirmed, supremely confident. Interesting, Jade said, pulling out a small datapad, because the guild database lists planetary gravity in a specific format. Can I see which entry you were looking at? Vekran frowned, but pulled up his own pad, showing her the screen. Right here, Earth, gravity, 0.45. See? Jade looked at it, and her smile got somehow colder. Oh, Vekran. That is adorable. You read the chart wrong. What? His confidence flickered. That number, that is not our gravity. That is our atmospheric pressure relative to standard. Earth's gravity is listed right here. She tapped the screen as 0.997 standard, basically 1-to-1 with galactic standard. The cantina went dead silent. Every being in the room was staring at Vekran now, and he felt his exoskeleton start to heat with embarrassment. That cannot be right. Oh, it is very right, Jade said cheerfully. See, most species assume we are from a low-gravity world because we look slender compared to, say, thoraxians. But we are not slender because of low gravity. We are slender because we are optimized. Efficient. We evolved persistence hunting on a one-gravity world, which means endurance, adaptability, and a really high tolerance for pain. Thropple's tentacles had frozen mid-drink pour. So the bets are about to get very interesting, Jade finished. She turned her attention back to Vekran, and he suddenly felt like prey. But hey, we already agreed to the competition, right? You are not going to back out now just because you did basic research wrong, are you? Vekran felt every eye in the cantina on him. His pride, his reputation, everything was on the line now. Of course not, he said, forcing confidence into his voice. So you evolved in one standard gravity, big deal. I still have 4 arms, double your mass, and an exoskeleton. You are still just a soft skin. Sure am, Jade agreed. Soft, squishy, fragile little human. Tell you what though, since you were so confident before, let us make this really interesting. When I win, you are going to apologize to every human on this station, and admit you were wrong. When you win. Vekran laughed, but it sounded hollow even to him. Fine. And when I win, you admit that humans are only in the guild because of pity and charity. Deal, Jade said, extending one small hand. Vekran clasped it with one of his, intending to squeeze just hard enough to make a point. Her grip was solid, her hand calloused, and when she squeezed back he felt his knuckles compress in a way that was distinctly uncomfortable. She released him and headed for the door. Gymnasium. 5 minutes. They'll not be late. As she left, the cantina erupted in a frenzy of revised betting, shouting, and speculation. Vekran sat there, staring at his hand, feeling the first cold touch of doubt creeping into his confidence. This might not go exactly as planned. The gymnasium occupied an entire section of Deck 7, a massive space with variable gravity plating that could simulate anything from 0G to 3 times galactic standard. It was primarily used for physical training, combat practice, and the occasional interspecies sporting event that usually ended with someone in medical bay. Today it was standing room only. Vekran walked through the crowd, acknowledging cheers and shouts of encouragement from his supporters. The betting had reached insane levels. Throppel had set up a remote station near the entrance, his tentacles flying across multiple data pads as he processed wagers. The current odds had shifted to 8-1 in Vecran's favor, down from 15 but still heavily weighted toward the Thoraxian. Station Security Chief Romo, a no-nonsense grundle with gray skin like granite and a permanent scowl, stood at the center of the gymnasium floor. "All right, listen up," she barked, her voice cutting through the noise like a plasma cutter. "This is a sanctioned competition, which means I am officiating to make sure nobody dies and creates paperwork for me." The crowd laughed nervously. "We will run 3 rounds," Romo continued, gesturing to the gravity controls mounted on the wall. "Round 1 at 1 standard gravity, round 2 at 1.5, round 3 at 2 standard. Each round consists of basic physical challenges: strength, endurance, agility. First competitor to fail a challenge or tap out loses that round. Best 2 out of 3 wins overall." Vecran nodded, rolling all 4 shoulders in sequence. His species had evolved on Thoraxis Prime, a high-gravity world at 1.2 standard. His people were built for this, with dense muscle tissue layered beneath their exoskeletons, redundant joint systems, and a cardiovascular network that could oxygenate tissue at incredible efficiency. He had been lifting cargo that would crush most species since he was a juvenile. "Competitors, take your positions," Romo ordered. Vecran stepped onto the marked competition area, a large circular platform about 30 feet in diameter. The gravity plating hummed beneath his feet, currently set to standard. He began his warm-up routine, extending each arm in turn, flexing his powerful legs, demonstrating his superior build to the audience. Jade stepped onto the platform opposite him, and the crowd noise changed pitch, becoming more focused, more intense. She started her warm-up, and Vecran nearly laughed. She was doing push-ups, simple, basic one-handed push-ups, alternating between left and right arm while her other hand rested casually on her lower back. 20 on the left, smooth and controlled. 20 on the right, same tempo. Then she dropped into a handstand, walked on her hands in a small circle and flipped back to her feet without apparent effort. Okay, that was moderately impressive. But it was basic gymnastics. Vecran could do handstands too if he wanted, though with forearms it was less impressive. Then Jade started doing pull-ups on an overhead bar, except she was doing them with just her fingertips, not even a full grip, pulling her entire body weight up with what looked like minimal effort. 20, 30, 40 reps without slowing down. Keswick, who had positioned himself near the front of the crowd, leaned over to Grenth. "Is it just me, or does she seem very calm?" "Too calm," Grenth muttered, his small eyes narrowing. Vecran shook off the observation. Calm meant nothing. Performance under pressure, that was what mattered. He had 4 arms, each one capable of lifting 200 pounds independently. His legs could squat over 1,000 pounds. His endurance was legendary among cargo haulers.
"What did this human have?"
1 standard gravity evolution and some fingertip pull-ups. Romo raised her hand, a timer device glowing in her palm. "Competitors ready." Vecran dropped into a ready stance, all 4 arms loose and prepared. "Ready." Jade simply stood straight, hands at her sides, breathing slow and even. "Ready." Round 1 begins in 3, 2, 1, start. The gravity plating confirmed its setting with a soft chime. 1 standard gravity, exactly what Earth produced, exactly what Vecran had trained in for years. Let the humiliation begin. The first challenge was simple: deadlift. A standardized weight bar sat between them, loaded with plates totaling 400 pounds. Each competitor would perform as many clean lifts as possible in 60 seconds. Vecran stepped up first, gripping the bar with 2 hands while his other 2 braced against his thighs for stability. He lifted, and the weight came up smoothly. Easy. He lowered it, lifted again, settled into a rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. The weight was significant but manageable. His breathing stayed controlled, his form perfect. At the 30-second mark, he had completed 12 lifts. At 60 seconds, 22 total. The crowd cheered. 22 reps at 400 pounds was respectable by any standard. Vecran stepped back, breathing a bit harder than he expected. The gravity felt heavier than usual. Or maybe he was just excited. Yeah, that was it. Adrenaline. Jade approached the bar, cracked her neck once to the left, once to the right, and gripped it with both hands. She lifted, and the bar came up like it weighed nothing. Her form was textbook perfect, back straight, core engaged, movement smooth as oil. She began repping, and Vecran felt his first flicker of genuine concern. She was fast. Much faster than him. The bar went up, down, in a steady metronome rhythm that never varied. At 30 seconds she had completed 18 lifts. At 60 seconds, 36. The crowd noise changed, becoming louder, more chaotic. Vecren heard Throppel shouting something about adjusted odds. Point to the human, Romo announced, her voice flat and professional. Next challenge. Farmer's carry. 2 heavy containers, each weighing 250 pounds, sat at one end of the platform. The challenge was to carry them to the other end, approximately 60 feet, and back. Fastest time won. Vecren grabbed both containers, one in each lower arm, and started moving. The weight pulled at his shoulders immediately, his exoskeleton compressing under the load. His feet hit the deck hard with each step, the impacts jarring up through his legs. 60 feet felt like 600. When he reached the turnaround point, his breathing was labored, his secondary hearts kicking in to assist circulation. The return trip was worse. His lower arms were screaming. His leg joints felt like someone had replaced the lubricant with sand. He made it back to the start line and dropped the containers with a massive clang, gasping for air. 41 seconds, Romo called out. Vecren bent over, hands on his knees, wondering why he felt so terrible. This was just standard gravity. He worked in standard gravity almost every day. Why was this so hard? Jade picked up the containers like they were luggage, one in each hand, and started walking. Not shuffling, not struggling, walking. Her stride smooth and even, her breathing barely elevated. She reached the far end, turned, and came back without any visible deterioration in form or speed. 28 seconds, Romo announced. The crowd erupted. Vecren heard credits changing hands, heard voices shouting in disbelief and excitement. Point to the human. Tied 1-1. No, this was not happening. Vecren straightened up, forcing his breathing to steady. He still had this. One more challenge in this round. Final challenge, endurance hold, Romo said, gesturing to a horizontal bar. Hang from the bar with full body extension. Last one holding wins the round. Perfect. This was all about grip strength and muscular endurance. Vecren had 4 hands to Jade's 2. Simple mathematics. They both gripped the bar. Vecren with all 4 hands spaced evenly, Jade with her 2. Romo signaled the start. And they hung. The first minute was fine. The second minute, Vecren felt the familiar burn starting in his shoulder joints. By the third minute, his lower arms were shaking. His exoskeleton, which should have provided support, felt like it was working against him, its weight pulling him down with relentless force. He glanced over at Jade. She hung there, completely still, breathing slow and controlled, staring at some point on the ceiling like she was waiting for a bus and mildly bored. 4 minutes. Vecren's upper arms started shaking too. 5 minutes. He redistributed his weight, trying to give his lower arms relief, but that just made his upper arms worse. 6 minutes. Jade was still hanging there, perfectly still. 7 minutes. Vecren's grip started to fail. He tried to hold on, tried to force his hands to maintain their clamp on the bar, but his body was betraying him. With a grunt of frustration and pain, he dropped to the mat, landing heavily. Jade hung there for another 30 seconds just to make a point, then released and landed lightly on her feet, barely making a sound. Round 1 to the human, Romo declared. 2-1, 10-minute rest period before round 2. The crowd was going absolutely insane. The betting stations were chaos. Vecren stood there on shaking legs, staring at this small human who had just outperformed him in his own weight class, and felt something he had not experienced in a very long time. Fear. The 10-minute rest felt like 10 seconds. Vecren sat on a bench at the edge of the platform, all 4 arms trembling slightly, drinking an electrolyte solution that tasted like metal and regret. Across the platform, Jade was doing light stretches, rotating her shoulders, shaking out her legs, looking completely fresh. Grant approached, his massive form blocking the overhead lights. Vecren, my friend, maybe you should reconsider. There is no shame in— I am fine, Vecren snapped, pushing himself to his feet. His legs protested, but they held. She got lucky. I was not warmed up properly. Round 2 will be different. Grant's expression suggested he did not believe that for a second, but he stepped back without another word. Romo's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. Round 2, gravity setting 1.5 standard. Competitors, take your positions. Vecren stepped onto the platform and immediately felt the difference. The gravity plating hummed louder, a deeper tone, and suddenly everything weighed more. His arms hung heavier at his sides. His exoskeleton pressed down on his frame like someone had added extra plating. 1.5 standard. He had trained in this before. He could handle this. The first challenge was a sprint, 60 feet, touch the far wall, 60 feet back, pure speed and explosiveness. Romo's timer started, and Vecren pushed off hard. His feet felt like they were stuck in thick mud. Each stride required enormous effort, his muscles burning with lactic acid. After just 20 feet, he reached the wall, slapped it, turned, and the return trip was agony. His lungs heaved, his vision started to narrow at the edges. He crossed the finish line and nearly collapsed. 18.3 seconds, Romo announced. Jade took her position, waited for the signal, and exploded forward. There was no other word for it. She moved like gravity had simply decided not to apply to her, her legs pumping in a blur, her form perfect. She hit the wall, turned on a single foot, and came back even faster. 9.1 seconds, Romo said, and the crowd lost its collective mind. Vecren stared, his breathing ragged. That was impossible. Nobody moved like that in 1.5 gravity. Nobody. Next challenge, Romo continued, her voice cutting through his shock. Weighted squats. As many as you can manage. A bar with 600 pounds appeared on a rack. Vecren approached it like it was a firing squad. He positioned himself under the bar, all four hands gripping, and lifted it onto his shoulders. The weight settled and his knees almost buckled immediately. He forced himself down into a squat, shaking violently, and pushed back up. 1. He managed 3 more before his legs simply refused to continue. He racked the weight, gasping, and stepped back. 4 reps. Pathetic. Jade stepped up, set herself under the bar, and lifted. She descended into a perfect squat, paused at the bottom, and drove back up. Then she did it again, and again. Smooth, controlled, relentless. She hit 20 reps before Romo called time. Gravity increasing to 2 standard, Romo announced, and Vecren felt his stomach drop. 2 standard. Twice Earth's gravity. He had never trained in 2 standard. His homeworld was 1.2. This was beyond his experience, beyond his biology's comfort zone. The gravity plating cycled up and Vecren's legs nearly gave out. It felt like someone had stacked another version of himself on his back. His exoskeleton, designed to protect and support, now felt like a prison. Every plate and joint a source of crushing weight. He tried to take a step and stumbled. His breathing became labored, each breath requiring conscious effort. His 4 arms hung at his sides like dead weight, the muscles screaming just from existing. Meanwhile, Jade stood there, still upright, still moving normally. She did a few experimental hops, testing the gravity, and nodded to herself like she was confirming something. That was when Vecren's pad chirped. A message from Keswick. Check the full Earth database entry. You need to see this. With shaking hands, Vecren opened the file. His compound eyes scanned the information, and with each line his horror grew. Earth. Gravity 0.997 standard. Atmospheric composition. Volatile oxygen-nitrogen mix. Atmospheric pressure variable, often extreme. Weather systems violent and unpredictable. Tectonic activity high. Native predators numerous, adaptable, persistent. Classification. Class 4 Deathworld. Deathworld. The galaxy classified planets on a scale from Class 1 garden paradises to Class 5 actively lethal hellscapes that killed anything that landed on them within hours. Earth was Class 4. Humans had evolved on a Class 4 Deathworld where the gravity was standard, the atmosphere was corrosive, the weather tried to kill you, and the local wildlife treated you as food. And he had just challenged one of them to a physical competition. Vecren looked up at Jade, who was now doing lunges in 2 times gravity like she was on a casual morning jog, and realized with absolute certainty that he had made a catastrophic error in judgment. Final challenge, Romo called out. Combat movement drill. Navigate the obstacle course. Fastest time wins. Vecren looked at the obstacle course. A series of walls, bars, and platforms that required climbing, jumping, and precise movement. In 2 times gravity it looked like a torture device. He was going to die here. Maybe not literally, but his pride, his reputation, everything he had built was about to be crushed under twice standard gravity and one very angry human. Vecren did not complete the obstacle course. He made it approximately 8 feet before his legs gave out entirely, and he collapsed onto the mat like a sack of cargo that had lost structural integrity. The impact drove the air from his lungs and he lay there gasping while the crowd watched in stunned silence. Jade completed the course in 42 seconds, moving through the obstacles like they were minor inconveniences rather than physical challenges. When she finished, she was not even breathing hard. Round 2 to the human, Romo announced. Match point. The human leads 2 rounds to 0. The crowd noise was deafening. A mix of cheers, groans, and the frantic sound of final bets being placed. Thropple's tentacles were moving so fast they were practically blurs. Vecren managed to get to his hands and knees, his entire body shaking. Every joint felt like it had been filled with broken glass. His exoskeleton, his pride, his greatest physical advantage, had become a liability, extra weight crushing him into the deck. "I concede," he tried to say, but his voice came out as a wheeze that nobody heard. Romo approached, her expression unreadable. "Competitor Vecren, do you wish to concede the match?" "Yes." Every fiber of his being screamed yes. This was over. He had lost. There was no shame in acknowledging reality. But then he heard it. Somewhere in the crowd, someone laughed. Someone said, "Thoraxians talk big but fold fast." His pride, that stupid stubborn pride that had gotten him into this disaster, flared one last time. "No," he gasped. Round 3. Romo's eyes widened slightly. "Competitor, I should inform you that round 3 is conducted at maximum gymnasium gravity. 3 times standard. Are you certain?" 3 times standard, 3 times Earth gravity, on a planet that was already classified as a Deathworld. "Yes," Vecren said, because apparently he had completely lost his mind. Jade walked over, and for the first time her expression showed something other than cold amusement. It almost looked like concern. "Hey, you do not have to do this. You have nothing to prove. We can call it here." "No," Vecren said, forcing himself to his feet. It took all 4 arms pushing against the mat, but he stood. "Barely. You wanted to teach me about Earth gravity, so teach me." Something flickered in Jade's eyes. Respect maybe, or pity. "Okay, but remember you asked for this." Romo backed away to the edge of the platform. "Gravity setting 3 times standard. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy." The gravity plating cycled up with a sound like distant thunder, and Vecren's world became pain. 3 times his body weight crashed down on his frame all at once. His legs buckled and he went down hard, hands and knees slamming into the deck. His exoskeleton creaked audibly, plates grinding against each other. His hearts, both primary and secondary, hammered frantically, trying to pump blood through a body that felt like it had turned to liquid. He could not breathe properly. Each breath was a conscious battle against the weight of his own chest. His vision blurred, his compound eyes struggling to focus. He tried to lift one arm, and the limb barely moved, muscles tearing with the effort. Meanwhile, Jade stood upright, moving with the same casual ease she had shown at 1 standard gravity. She walked in a circle around him, her steps light and controlled. Then she dropped into a fighting stance and began running through what looked like a combat kata, a series of strikes, blocks and movements that flowed together like deadly choreography. Punches that would shatter bone, kicks that would cave in ribs, spinning movements that defied the crushing gravity. She moved faster, more aggressively, and Vecren realized with dawning horror that this was not her showing off. This was her baseline, this was normal for her. "You wanted to know about Earth," Jade said, her voice clear despite the exertion of her movements. "Let me explain something. Humans do not come from a gentle world. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators that could run faster, bite harder, had better senses, weather that could freeze or cook you in hours, diseases that could wipe out entire populations." She executed a backflip, landing perfectly, and continued. "So we adapted. We became endurance hunters who could chase prey for days until it died of exhaustion. We became tool users who could outthink anything that wanted to eat us. We became survivors who simply refused to die no matter what the universe threw at us." Vecren tried to respond, but all that came out was a groan. He could not move. He could barely think. The weight was everything, crushing in absolute. Jade stopped in front of him, crouching down so they were at eye level. "You said you wanted to help me understand my place in the galaxy. You said I should fly." She smiled, and it was not cruel, just honest. "Let me help you with that." She grabbed him, her hands finding purchase under his primary arms, and with a smooth, powerful motion, she lifted, all 8 feet, and 400 pounds of him came off the deck like he weighed nothing. She held him there for a moment, suspended in 3 times gravity, and then she threw. Vecren flew. He sailed through the air for approximately 15 feet before gravity remembered he existed and slammed him back down. He hit the mat and did not move, could not move, just lay there in a heap of broken pride and screaming joints. The gymnasium was absolutely silent. 2,000 beings stood in shocked stillness processing what they had just witnessed. Then someone started clapping. Slowly at first, Then others joined in, until the entire crowd was applauding, cheering, not for Vecran's defeat but for the sheer terrifying display of human capability they had just witnessed. Jade walked over to where Vecran lay and extended one hand. "Need help getting to medical?" Vecran looked at that hand, that small, fragile-looking human hand that had just thrown him like a cargo container, and nodded weakly. "Yes, please." She helped him up with surprising gentleness, supporting his weight as Romo shut down the gravity plating. As normal station gravity returned, Vecran felt like he could breathe again, but the damage was done. He had learned about Earth gravity. He would never forget the lesson. Medical Bay 3 smelled like antiseptic and humility. Vecran lay on a reinforced bed designed for larger species, his exoskeleton covered in diagnostic sensors that beeped softly in rhythm with his elevated heart rates. The station doctor, a six-armed medicant named Trell, had diagnosed him with severe muscular strain, joint inflammation, and what she called catastrophic ego damage. That last one was not a real medical condition, but Vecran felt it was accurate anyway. The door hissed open and Jade walked in, carrying 2 containers of something that steamed. She had changed back into her regular jumpsuit and looked completely unaffected by the competition, like she had just finished a light workout instead of humiliating a thoraxian in front of 2,000 witnesses. "Brought you some protein broth," she said, setting one container on the table beside his bed. "Trell said your species processes it well for recovery." Vecran stared at her, trying to formulate words. "Why are you being nice to me? I was horrible to you." Jade pulled up a chair and sat down, opening her own container and taking a sip. "Because you are not the first person to make that mistake, and you will not be the last. Humans look soft. We know this. Most species assume we are fragile because we do not have exoskeletons or thick hides or natural armor. It is an understandable error." "I called you weak," Vecran said quietly. "I mocked your entire species." "Yeah, you did," Jade agreed, no heat in her voice. "And now you know better. That was the point of the exercise." She leaned back in the chair, cradling her broth. "Earth is not an easy world, Vecran. It is beautiful, do not get me wrong, but it has tried very hard to kill us for millions of years. We have apex predators on every continent. We have weather systems that can flatten cities. We have tectonic activity that reshapes entire regions without warning." She paused, taking another sip. "And the gravity, that one standard gravity you thought was nothing, that has been pushing down on us every single second of every single day since our species learned to walk upright. Our bones are dense to handle the compression. Our muscles are layered for maximum efficiency. Our cardiovascular system is over-engineered because it has to pump blood upward against that constant pull." Vecran managed to prop himself up slightly, wincing at the pain in his shoulders. "The database said Class 4 Deathworld. I did not know. I honestly did not know. Most people do not read that far into the entry." Jade said with a slight smile. "They see that we are diplomatic, that we prefer negotiation to conflict, and they assume we are pacifists because we are weak. But we are not pacifists because we are weak, Vecran. We are pacifists because we know exactly how dangerous we can be, and we choose not to be that way." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. "On Earth," Jade continued, "there is a saying, we are persistence predators. We do not have to be the fastest or the strongest. We just have to outlast everything else. We chase our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We survive injuries that would kill most species. We adapt to environments that should be impossible. And we do it all under one full standard gravity, every single day without even thinking about it." Vecran felt something shift in his understanding of the galaxy. How many other species know this? The ones who have worked closely with humans. The ones who have been to Earth. They know. But most of the galaxy just sees us as the friendly species who showed up 30 cycles ago with smiles and trade agreements. Jade shrugged. "We are okay with that. Better to be underestimated than feared." "I will never underestimate a human again," Vecran said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Jade grinned. "Good. Now drink your broth and rest. Trell says you will be fine in a few days, though you might be sore for a while." She stood to leave, but Vecran stopped her with a weak gesture from one hand. "Jade, I am sorry, truly, for everything I said." She turned back and her expression softened. "Apology accepted. And for what it is worth, you lasted longer than I thought you would in 3 times gravity. That took guts. Or stupidity," Vecran muttered. "Sometimes they are the same thing," Jade said with a laugh. "Get some rest. And next time you want to learn about a species, maybe try reading the full database entry first." She left, and Vekran lay back on the bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in his mind. The competition, the humiliation, the lesson. He had thought he understood the galaxy, understood his place in it, understood what made species strong or weak. He had been completely catastrophically wrong. Humans were not weak, they were terrifying. They had just decided to be kind instead. And somehow that made them even more terrifying. 3 days later, Vekran sat in the rusty valve, his body still sore but functional. His reputation had taken a beating, but oddly he had gained something more valuable, actual respect from species who had witnessed the competition. A newcomer to the station, a young Bulgarian named Kretch, was holding court at the bar, loudly proclaiming that humans were only successful because of their technology and political alliances. Seriously, Kretch said, gesturing with his drink. They are from a low-gravity world, probably 0.4 or something. Physically weak, compensate with tools. Basic stuff. Vekran felt every eye in the cantina turned toward him. Thropple's tentacles froze mid-polish on a glass. Slowly, deliberately, Vekran stood and walked over to Kretch. All 4 arms crossed over his chest. "Friend," he said quietly, "let me tell you about Earth's gravity. And then, if you are very unlucky, I will introduce you to Jade, and she can demonstrate it personally." Kretch's confident expression faltered. "Wait, what?" "Earth is one standard gravity," Vekran continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the now silent cantina. "It is classified as a Class 4 Deathworld. Humans evolved as persistence predators in conditions that would break most of us. They are not weak, they are kind. There is a difference, and you really do not want to learn it the way I did." He leaned in closer, and Kretch actually backed up a step. "So here is my advice. Show respect, read the full database entry, and never ever challenge a human to a physical competition unless you enjoy pain and public humiliation." Thropple started laughing, a burbling sound from deep in his body, and soon the entire cantina joined in. Kretch looked around, confused and suddenly very aware he had made a social error. Vekran clapped him on the shoulder with one hand, not unkindly. "First round is on me. You are going to need it for the education you are about to receive." Across the cantina, Jade walked in for her shift change, saw the scene and caught Vekran's eye. She raised one hand in a small wave. Vekran waved back with all 4 arms, smiling. He had learned his lesson about gravity, and he would spend the rest of his career making sure others did not have to learn it the hard way. Though if he was being honest, watching them learn it the hard way was pretty entertaining too.